We'd like to transition now to the next frontier, the technologies and digital systems, now reshaping society at unprecedented speed. We are very fortunate to have Mark Minevich with us to speak about AI, digital governance, and the future of infrastructure. Mark Minevich is a global strategist in artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and innovation. His work spans business, public policy, sustainability, and multilateral engagement. He brings a future-facing perspective on how AI and digital infrastructure can influence peace, trust, and global resilience. Mark, could you enlighten us on whether AI becomes a peace multiplier or a destabilizing force?
So thank you very much, Lindsay, and thank you very much, Barbara, for putting this Peace Innovation Initiative webinar together to address very complex issues. First of all, AI is today transforming lives of billions of people. I'm talking about billions across the world. We simply, in every sector, in every industry, AI is making a difference. But still, a lot of people are very concerned, are very scared of AI. And one example, Lindsay, for your question regarding peace principles and where we are in terms of our AI infrastructure, I want to give an example that will relate to the audience that is listening to us. When we talk about peace, we unfortunately have to talk about a conflict. And there's a conflict which is going on now in the Middle East. Part of it is very prosperous Middle East. It happened close to 45, 46 days ago. And I think it will answer the question much more than any framework could put together. Remember those dates, dear audience. On March the 2nd, the Iranian drones hit the Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city. It is the world's largest LNG export hub. Following that ballistic missile strike, there was another strike on March 18th, which damaged several LNG trains. What people are missing is that Ras Laffan produces roughly 30% of the world's helium. Why am I talking about helium related? Because it's crucial. Critical cooling agent for EUV lithography machines that fabricate every advanced chip on Earth that is being used by NVIDIA and other companies. One company specifically, ASML, that's actually in Netherlands, not in United States, one of the great Dutch companies, makes every single machine that makes those chips. The entire global AI supply chain flows through that facility. And it just shattered something in the Gulf. As you know, Stargate, one of the initiatives that is funded by SoftBank, by UAE sovereign funds, it's over 1 gigawatt, as you know, Gordon, supercomputer complex in Abu Dhabi. It's coming online. It was supposed to be coming online this year in phases. There's also a project in Saudi Arabia called Humane, which is building AI factories, targeting 500 megawatts of compute, maybe even more. So the paradox that I want to leave this panel is the same sovereign funds, the oil funds, that is making this whole notion of sovereignty, that independence, saying that we're going to control our destiny, we're going to control our future with AI, having greater ambition, is also correlated with the same Hormuz tension that is threatening energy that Gordon spoke about, that is threatening cooling infrastructure, that the AI hubs or clusters, however you want to say, depend on. This is what I call a recursive instability. This recursive instability loop that nobody modeled in any peace architecture around the world. This is a complete design failure that we're here to name, and we got to work on it. Making a peace a design principle, for me, means one question. In every layer of the stack, and I mean the technology stack, does the system create dependency or does it build capability? Right now, the scale is completely wrong. And I also want to address, because of this prime example that I gave, I see tremendous risks in the AI landscape that we need to talk about. And I'm primarily going to speak on three because we're short on time. First is that we have collapse of the shared reality. China's influence today on operations in 2026, where we're operating, is not just propaganda. It is contesting and eroding trust in global systems. It is attrition after crisis. The peace risk is not about just deepfakes. No, it's not. It's a destruction of the common factual ground in which every ceasefire and every negotiation depends. It's not only China, other countries are doing the same, and we have to stop this. And that's the point of this initiative. Second, United Nations is watching this. The World Bank is taking place in an IMF summit now in Washington, D.C. Everybody's coming together. Semaphore with top CEOs in the world. Autonomous weapons, we have seen it now in the Gulf, is removing human judgment. Is that okay? Is this okay with us? The UN Secretary General set a 2026 deadline for binding treaty on autonomous weapons. This deadline will not be met. No way. The powers blocked it. Research confirms that 80% of the simulated war games that are happening within Department of War and NATO, autonomous systems are misrepresenting counterstrikes, precipitating full conflicts. This is not a 2030 problem, ladies and gentlemen. This is the problem right now today. Finally, workforce displacement. Without a transition architecture, we're going to be in trouble, all of us. On March 31st, Oracle sent 30,000 termination emails at 6 a.m. And I wrote about this on my media and also on major media that I write. With no prior warning, it happened. Q1 2026, we have seen 78,000 technology layoffs in my field, many of them in Silicon Valley, where I work. 48% are directly attributed to artificial intelligence. This is not normal. Entry-level technology positions are down. Gen Z is suffering. 67% this year they're down. The IMF in the meeting recently said most countries and businesses are not prepared. Yes, they're not prepared. When you hollow the knowledge worker pipelines at this speed, and we're talking about speed, and no transition framework, which connects to the peace framework, you don't produce unemployment statistics. You produce social conditions for radicalization of youth around the world. This is the peace risk hiding inside every quarterly earning call. And that's what I want to leave you today.
Mark, thank you for a much needed and bracing wake-up perspective. A follow-up question before we move to a final round of perspectives. You advise governments, enterprises, and multilateral efforts on AI and digital transformation, including the UN's work on digital government and initiatives. What does it mean in practical terms to make peace a design principle in digital infrastructure? And in that, how can we address what the father of AI, Nobel Peace Laureate Geoffrey Hinton, said, that AI is developing at a rate that even he didn't expect? And even as another perspective, the Bletchley Park discussions under former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak created a framework, but we haven't seen anything since on safeguards and common ground and common frameworks among nations.
It's a deep question with a lot of points. First of all, I want to come back to the chairman and CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, who basically pointed out that we have to get stronger if we're going to tackle inequality, mistrust, and fragility, and all of those issues. AI is going to get ahead regardless. It will speed up at speeds that we have never seen before. And what Professor Hinton talks about is this evolution that AI is going to get smarter by the second, and we're already leading in AGI. But that doesn't mean that we, as professionals, as leaders, are going to stop. We have to do much more, as Jensen says. We have to do much more to make sure that we protect the public. And you could see all of that, as I mentioned, technology layoffs, many of them are attributed, but we have to figure out what the guardrails are. How do we create the right social preconditions? What do we do in terms of social contracts? What do we do in terms of what diplomatic frameworks can absorb today and have to absorb today? We have to figure out what users are capable and what they're dependent upon. We already spoke about autonomous weapons. We spoke about issues related to energy, about open source health and everything else. We have to figure out how we strengthen people with resources. The governments are fragile. And we don't, instead, they're moving into what I call surveillance AI state under the banner of smart cities. We need to stop this. We need to figure out what would be this multi-stakeholder governance capability and how would we make sure that we work on this multi-stakeholder governance. Look, I see something called greater fragmentation happening right now that people are not seeing. Simultaneous fracturing of supply chains, simultaneous fracturing of the alliances, of our information, of our labor markets. And we have to do something about it. We're already seeing what's happening in the Gulf with the oil prices. The geopolitics is stepping in. So we are now have to step in as responsible leaders and figure out what would this new social contract will be for capital, for talent, for infrastructure, and for decisions. This is why peace must become a design, not only become a design challenge. We got to focus engineering and we got to bring it to reality. And finally, I would say that we have to build a new social contract that hasn't been built before. Social contract has to be built properly right now and in the world. And we have seen already something called Sovereign AI Compact for Critical Infrastructure, modeled not under UN treaty, but under Montreal Protocol, which has moved in 18 months because science was so fast, was so undeniable. We got to do much more than that to make sure that we have shared standards for AI and critical systems, as all of the distinguished panelists spoke about: energy, health, water. And we got to make sure that mutual AI incidents are reported immediately. We don't have a system for that. UN hasn't designed a system for that. Autonomous systems can cause cascading failures on energy and health. And we got to learn on this immediately before it happens. We got to have full alignment and full trust in this infrastructure. The window is open, but it's a very short window because things are moving so quickly. In 18 months, we have to, as AI moves to this next level of AGI, and this reasoning and the strategic thinking, we gotta move fast to make sure that it's not just systems, it's outcomes and trust.
Mark Minevich, 18 months. What can we do in AI, technology, and digital infrastructure?
Lindsay, in 18 months, the whole world will be upside down. We're not going to even recognize this. 18 months in AI time is just incredible, even in a day, even in a week. What's happening right now. But as Bruce and Elizabeth and Gordon mentioned, something is missing here. We're seeing this, at least from my angle, this sovereign AI is taking place. Everybody's harboring their own resources, protecting their own resources. But we need sovereign AI to work for a peace architecture, not just fragmented acceleration. Peace architecture has to be the endpoint. It should be the shared imperative, and I believe, and genuine alignment for all of us on this call. We don't have the same language. All of us, we come from different backgrounds, from different geographic areas. There's no shared language between the people, but yet we have to build this infrastructure together as people, as humans. We're going to build a new peace framework. Howard Lutnick, our Secretary of Commerce, mentioned globalization is no longer. So if globalization is no longer and we're relying on a different framework, we have to build that framework together. So your words, Gordon and Elizabeth and Bruce, they did really, they're very important. We have to close this translation gap that we're seeing. We have to make sure that infrastructure architects are sitting in a room with peace builders, not by accident, but by design. And we got to keep building the systems that are technologically sophisticated, but also strategically important for the world. And one final thing, AI most important contribution, Lindsay, in the next 18 months, or maybe even shorter, I would even say in less than a year, has to be in building trust. Building a trust where trust doesn't exist in infrastructure to make sure that human disagreements, they will survive. And that must start today. And it started today because of the work that Barbara has done, making AI systems legitimate, make sure that they're contestable, make sure that there's governance across all borders, not just within. And that's the future we desire. Thank you for having us.
Mark,